We're recording this podcast in the wake of one of the most shocking assassinations in American history. Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, was gunned down during a campus debate in Utah Valley University on September 10th. This tragedy has forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the state of the political discourse in America. Today I'm joined with José Niño, a geopolitical analyst, writer, and host of Niño Speaks podcast. Jose has written extensively about American politics from an Australian economics and libertarian perspective, and he has contributed to publications like Miles Institute and Big League Politics. Jose, thank you for joining us during this difficult time. I just want to gauge how you feel regarding this. What's your immediate reaction to what's going on right now?
Yeah, I was genuinely shocked at what happened, and it's a sign of what I've been saying for some time, that the US system is breaking down in many respects, and that a lot of politics is trending towards a more radical direction. I believe when we were talking before off air, I mentioned cases, the Luigi Mangione assassination and then the assassination of two diplomats at the Israeli embassy. Well, I think this is part of a broader trend where politicized violence will become the norm as the US political system becomes corrupt, and many people with tons of grievances will start to take matters into their own hands. And I think this is a sign of the times, in my view.
Are you wasting hours every week on clunky systems and manual processes just because every consultant's told you enterprise solutions cost tens of thousands of dollars? That's a lie, and it's killing your business. If you're a small town entrepreneur, a growing business owner, or a nonprofit, you already feel the pressure. Every hour wasted on spreadsheets or duct tape apps is an hour stolen from actually growing your business. Here's the truth. You don't need a massive budget to compete with an enterprise level. I'm Cody, the weird Canadian, and I've spent over a decade building multi-billion-dollar systems for government and Fortune 500 companies. Now I bring that same expertise to entrepreneurs like you with scalable websites, custom applications, and smart automations, all built on a shoestring. My process is simple. I analyze your business to see where you're bleeding time and money. I strategize the high-impact solutions for your budget. I execute systems that scale with you. And I optimize so you keep on growing without adding chaos. And on top of that, I'm there with you to explain every process and how it works and why it works for you. Now imagine having enterprise-grade systems that save you hours a week, let you compete with the bigger players, and give you confidence knowing your business runs smoothly, even while you sleep. That's the freedom you've been chasing. Stop waiting. Start scaling. Book your strategy consultation today, and let's build the business systems you deserve. Looking forward to working with you, and let's stay weird.
Do you think the latest news from Trump labeling Antifa a terrorist organization is just an escalation at this point?
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is my view on this matter is that there's going to be some type of crackdown against radical leftist organizations, and then this could turn into something you could spiral out of control, because many radical leftist organizations and some of their fellow travelers and allies of convenience, they're actually quite organized, and they will likely fight back, because in recent times the left has definitely gone more kinetic and it's been out on the streets, and this could be the moment of activation for them.
It's funny that you say that this is a moment of activation. I think a few months ago I predicted in one of my videos that we're about to see some major event in the U.S. that's going to cause like a political shift in everything that's going on, and I was like, I did not expect it to be this obscure. I expected it to be something more like in your face. Like Charlie Kirk is in your face, but I didn't expect it to come. He's not. Well, he is involved in politics. He's not involved in politics. He's not
a politician. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I expected something on the aspect of like a domestic terrorism act more than this, which is what surprised me.
Yeah, I've been to tons of turning point events, from the small ones on campuses to the big ones like they have at their conferences in Arizona and Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. And what he built there was impressive, regardless of where you stand on the ideological spectrum. But his assassination, I think, is generally a symptom of a general political and cultural malaise that's happening, where people no longer believe that the system is capable of governing. So they're going to start taking matters in their own hands. And I think it's not going to be exclusive to the left. You may see some of these groups on the right start also getting involved, because they've been very disappointed with how elites in DC and state governments have governed. So you're probably going to see some type of clash soon.
I've also actually started looking into the impacts of this outside the U.S. as well, especially with the Western's like aversion to Trump style politics. I anticipate the other side to like then restrict even more on our reverse side, which is our conservatives as opposed to our liberals that are the ones causing the problems. It's going to be interesting to see what the times come. I want to ask you in this time with Trump actually responding to the assassination with a lawsuit against the New York Times to stop the media, and at the same time we're hearing crackdowns on independent media voices. What do you think the role of independent media should be in the current crisis right now?
It should be to try to be as objective as possible and highlight any abuses of power, not just from like the Trump administration, potential abuses of power from the Trump administration, but also start highlighting more like the deep political facets of nonprofits and shadowy organizations that are trying to stoke tensions, because there are a consortium of NGOs and private institutions that I believe are trying to foment some type of conflict, and they're
Yeah,
trying to incite both sides too. Because I don't abide by the left versus right paradigm. I'm mostly abide by the ruling class versus the people type of framework. And the elites want a strategy of tension between the right and the left, and they want both sides to go as violent as possible so that they can justify not just crackdowns on civil liberties. I think they're trying to justify the creation of like a modern day like AI powered mass surveillance
surveillance
state,
state.
and I think that's the goal. And they're gonna try to prop up both the radical left and even some elements of the right so they can like actually get involved in really nasty fights. You're
It's
already
funny you.
seeing you're
It's
already
funny you.
seeing
Go ahead.
just real quick, Attorney General Pam Bondi calling for like hate speech laws, already suggesting that, and I think you're going to start seeing more of that come out soon.
We already have a couple of censorship laws in Canada. I just talked to Carmichael about how some of the unions are starting to become these massive entities that are pushing for these political changes as well, which are becoming more and more incentivized to just topple the system as it is and keep it the same. But I think there's a global aspect of some sort of surveillance state. Like I've been getting feelings for a while now that everything is going coordinated, like worldwide coordination towards
Yes,
we need
yes,
AI to police our citizens as opposed to AI empowering people.
yes. They're most of the elites, forget the presidents or heads of state of these countries. The elites, like the donors, the corporations that bankroll both parties, the public policy think tanks, and all these people, they're generally in agreement that there needs to be like some mass surveillance state. It's that when it's with the people, when it gets taken to the people, there's massive opposition. And so they're going to try to like, generate a crisis so that they can scare the population into embracing this panopticon. And the thing with Trump is they actually may be able to achieve it with him, because he knows how to market well. And For example, a surveillance program that would be rolled out by, like, say, like Hillary Clinton or any liberal Democrat in the United States would actually be opposed immediately, just out of sheer partisanship. But with Trump, otherwise lulled to sleep, his base, which has a reflexive hostility towards mass surveillance programs, but his ability to tapping into the red versus blue dynamic and he could sell the population on a mass surveillance program. In other countries like Canada, for example, in US, you have to so has stronger civil liberties protections, and the culture is more hostile towards this stuff, so it's harder to do. And you have to have somebody special to kind of like shepherd those reforms.
It's interesting you mentioned that because Canada actually started changing once we had those hate speech laws come in. I believe Pierre Trudeau in 1970 was the one who initially established hate speech as a law within our Charter of Rights in Canada. And that's when literally things started to crumble, because when you start classifying speech, that's when it becomes an issue to say anything. And that's when you're weaponizing speech. Because who gets to dictate what hate speech is? And it's actually interesting because I think to date, Canada has yet to actually convict anybody of a hate speech problem or an act. So we've had this law for 50 years and we've never been able to get it through an actual court system to hold somebody accountable to it. I'm interested to see how it will work out in the U.S. courts and the U.S. Senate that way.
Yeah, it hasn't been passed, and to be honest, it may not, and it's very likely won't, because most of the MAGA movement, there's also big infighting in the MAGA movement, is very hostile towards the concept in general. And that's going to create a lot of pushback. But you don't know what can happen if there's like a big terrorist event. I mean, the U.S. passed the Patriot Act after 9/11, so a lot of things are possible. They have to engineer a crisis, and this Kirk assassination could lead to a certain type of could spiral out of control, and then at that point, elites could generate a kind of Gladio style years of lead type of crisis where the ruling class will use a strategy of tension to usher in this surveillance state. But a lot of dominoes have to fall before that happens.
I hope they don't fall, because Canada had the similar situation during the Freedom Convoy. I just hope the U.S. holding out that modicum of hope of we are free stays that way. If you were to advise political figures and media figures today, how would you step us back from the brink? What would you tell people? What does a constructive path look like forward?
I think it has to be a kind of national populist path that's focused on taming high finance, restricting immigration, both legal and illegal, stopping the never-ending wars, rolling back the surveillance state and stuff. It has to be focused on delivering legislative results. The problem I feel is that, and this is one of the crises of our times, is that the U.S., the federal government, it's actually not even passing many laws these days. It only passes bad laws, and it doesn't even repeal any of the bad laws either. So it's become very stagnant. And as a result of that, a lot of people are checking out of the system. Others are radicalizing and taking matters into their own hands. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to have some type of crisis, whether it's domestic disturbances or institutional breakdown, and we'll be entering uncharted waters there.
It's actually kind of interesting that you're talking through this, because it kind of sounds like literally Canada's course over the years, that we've just had law after law after law and nothing repealed. So we're just sitting on top of bad things. This is how, working in the government, this is how I've noticed that we're going to fail, is because we refuse to look at the things we've built and reflect on them. We just keep on building more instead of reflecting on our past and saying, hey, we need to fix the things that we broke, then move forward. And it's very interesting that the United States is now going through this, because it feels like an accelerated pace as opposed to Canada. Like Canada's had this trajectory over the past 10 to 15 years when the Liberals got into power, and the U.S. seems it's been like this year.
Well, the thing is, the ruling classes and of both Canada and the United States, the elites, they're quite similar actually, and they pursued a lot of the similar policies of mass migration and also COVID, like as you mentioned, the trucker convoys. They pursued very similar draconians. The difference is, I'd say, with the U.S. is that there is a stronger culture of individual liberty. That's one thing that's true, but that makes the U.S. really unique, is that Americans have a very strong sense of individual liberties and self-starting in their political DNA. And this applies to both sides of the political spectrum, where it makes it very difficult to for demagogic politicians to immediately impose tyrannical measures, but they can do it anyways, gradually over time, and through a lot of these strategies of tensions and polarization. Because when you have an artificially polarized environment, it becomes very difficult to create the people versus ruling class dynamic that we need to take place for reforms to happen. But when you have people in the red versus blue team, it creates a lot of tension and a lot of pointless bickering while elites continue to do things behind the scenes at the expense of the nation. And a lot of the really bad stuff that we see now is actually extra political. The courts impose it, or a lot of corporations, they get away with it knowing that they're not going to be held accountable by legislatures. We're in an era where elected officials are like pretty much like useless. They're just puppets that hardly govern, and if they do govern, they govern for elites, not the people. And that's what's going to create this present crisis, in my opinion.
I just have like I want to kind of have a little bit of a lighter tone or a more happy tone, I guess. Do you know? Did you hear about the Nepal situation?
No.
Okay, so I want to give you this information because I think it'll help the American audience as well as the Canadian audience. Nepal just had a revolution within a week. I think it started on the September 7th and it ended like on the 11th or something like that. And they coordinated via Discord to elect a new head or interim leader of the state. They completely reformed their government. They burned everything down. They're working with the military, the People's Party, and everybody to try and build up this new government. And it only took place over like a week's worth of time. Everybody should be looking into this situation because I think it is how, if it comes to the extremes, this might be what we have to do.
Yes, I think that there is. I'm not as pessimistic as some people. I think if people are able to break polarization, this system can easily be overturned. People just have to avoid the shiny object syndrome of getting involved in short-term political projects that are just reactionary in nature, and getting involved in blue versus red team politics and being able to build kind of united fronts against government overreach and all that.
Learning what your morals are and standing by them more than standing by the party's political or ideals, essentially. I just want to give you the last 5 minutes to give you any final thoughts or anywhere anybody can reach you.
Yes, I think we're entering a new epoch of politics in the US and the broader West, where the present system that's been in power since the end of the World War II is coming to an end. And it could be a good thing or even a bad thing, depending on who is able to take power. But I think people should actually be excited because they're witnessing something historical. You can become part of history, and they should not cower away or become afraid, because this is where like political greatness can be made. And if you want to follow me, I suggest that your audience go to my Substack, José Niño Unfiltered, at josbcf.substack.com, or follow me on X/Twitter at Jose Al Nino.
Thank you very much for this thoughtful and difficult conversation. Thank you, and I will make sure all of the information is in the description below. And for my followers, I do have 2 videos coming up. I have 2 videos that you might be interested in, one being Prom Carmichael, who I talk in depth into the political sphere, in the US political sphere, and also Jack Brewster, who created Newsreel, the interesting way of getting news for Gen Z, apparently. Next time. Thank you very much.